Good to see everybody. This is unique times. I'm glad that we can all meet like this. It's not too bad. So I'm glad you all figured it out and got in here. And like Heather said, this is awesome way to re-watch it with your spouse, with your significant other, with your partner, with your kid, like anybody. Please use this and forward it to your family members. You all have this benefit. So this is for anybody and everybody. Honestly, it's not going to matter. So just as soon as we get that recording out and the PowerPoint and the handouts, then you can use that. And so a lot of people, we do that a lot, send it out to people that weren't able to join or whatever. So, okay, so we'll get started. I'm Carol. I'm a clinical mental health counselor and a certified family life educator, and I love teaching. Never knew I was going to be teaching classes like this. Like, what did we do? Like a week ago, I did a parenting during a pandemic. Like, I never thought I'd be doing that. But we're here, right? We're all here. So anything we can take, this is just some information that you can take further with it if you want. I'm just going to throw out lots of good ideas. I'm going to educate you on what mental health is, because we have to really know what that is first. And there's some basics of mental health that I teach that hopefully will be helpful. So first of all, I just kind of real quick, this is your benefit, your bone cook cell benefit. Just so you know, these are some of the options that you have. So we won't spend too much time on that. Okay, so this is what we're going to go over today. So first we have to know what balance is and how to stay in balance. So that is our physical, mental, social, and emotional / spiritual. Now, some researchers and books put emotional and spiritual separate. You know, I know several different people that do that, and then some like Covey and other people put it. So emotional and spiritual I always put together. So there's 4 basics, and I'll go over that later. We're going to prevent burnout with proactive behavior. We got to learn about our balance and then our behavior that comes with it. And then practicing coping skills, mindfulness, maintaining some management of our emotions, all those kind of things. So that's the basics of what we're going to go over. So this is essential. So what mental health is how we feel, well, think first. Think, feel, and behave. So this is cognitive behavioral. This is like, so we have a thought that comes in, we have a feeling, and then we have a behavior. So of course, I want you to take notes on some things along the way in this next, 50 minutes that we have. As I'm talking, you can go through, okay, where do I start with this, and how is this affecting me right now? And of course, you're going to get this information PowerPoint later, and you can go over it. But we got to go with thoughts, feeling, and behavior first. So here's a thought. We have all this thought that comes in, and this is self-talk and physical reaction right after the thought. So self-talk happens in the frontal lobe, so I'm going to talk about that. So we have to just go over these 3 basic areas of the brain. So we have a thought, then that sends us into a feeling, and then that sends us into a behavior. Okay. So this little picture of why coronavirus is triggering our mental health. I mean, you can see the mindset goes to survival instead of our basic routine that's like, oh, we're living, we're doing okay, and overnight we've had to go into some survival mechanisms, right? And so our fight, flight, or freeze is super awesome. It keeps us alive. And so we've had some traumatic experiences. I mean, add the earthquake to it of like, oh, I don't know, that's kind of weird. Am I going to die right now? And your physiological body, because right after the thought kicks in, and then we have this physiological response system that keeps us alive and says, hey, something's not right, do something, So I'm sure you guys all can now look back and see how that's working for us. This is for everybody. This is for your kids. This is for like I said, we'll try to, hit everybody in anything, any kind of family that you're in or whatever, but we've got to know that we have fear that's different now, right? So we have fear for our loved ones, we have fear for our health, we have fear for our jobs. So that's where we're at. I mean, so this is the acute stress situation. So this is our balance, okay? So we have to kind of know where our balance is. So I'm going to go back to this thought, feeling, and behavior, but we first go into balance, okay? So our basic balance is our physical, mental, social, and emotional, like I said. So physical, okay, so how we feel, and how we behave is a lot to do with our physical, but our diet, exercise, and sleep are so essential for all this. So our mental health, of course, is what we're talking about. Here's mental, our brain power, our judgment, what we learn, how we're stimulating our mind. Social, we've had that completely erupted, right? So, and our emotional, spiritual, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence, how to ground, how to be connected that way in spiritual ways. So, in the emotional ways. So just know that and have that as your basic four. So why it says time, energy, and money, this is how I teach this, is your basic balance has to do with these four, and it has to do with where your value system is. So where you put your time, energy, and money, I can tell where people are in their balance is where you put your time, energy, and money. I mean, really. So it's like, here's my energy, here's my money, here's my time. Where do I put it in these four categories? So just look at that, and we're going to see, you want to kind of see if you're out of balance in one of these, because that adds to behavior and burnout that we're going to talk about at the end of here. So, and if you have questions, you can chime in. I'll kind of stop here and there and say, okay, is everyone with me, and do we have any questions about this? So first of all, we have to know what our thoughts are and emotions. So this one's kind of a combination that I found, a little mindful cycle. So of course it says sound of, we have to label the sounds and the thoughts and the emotions. So first we have to label our thoughts. We have to know what we're doing in our thought system, in our thought process. So I teach a thinking errors class, and I constantly talk about thoughts first. How is our thinking doing? How, if we're overgeneralizing, if we're black and white, if we're jumping to conclusions, those are all thinking errors. So just observe, label, just know this is a little bit of an easy, picture of mindful cycle. So if you have kids, you can put up a little cycle, like, okay, wait, let's observe. This is, let's label it. How am I reacting? And then how's the response system? How do I relax myself? So just keep that in mind, because that's how the brain works also. It's exactly like this. So we want to be able to get to the calm part. What happens in acute stress or fight or flight, we don't get to the calm part and stress response. So if we're in high stress, we're not getting to the calm part as much. And that's what I'm going to talk about at the end of this, is how to calm the brain, how to calm the mind, how to have coping mechanisms that are able to relax the the nervous system, the automatic response, and then balance. So that's what this little mindful cycle that I found was perfect. It was like, okay, yes, we've got to have balance of those four basic, our four basic balances of emotional and physical and mental and social. So, okay. So I mentioned some thinking errors. So here's our thought first. So we have the definitions. I'm just going to leave this up here for a second. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. I do have like just a PDF of these definitions, but you're going to have this. So as I was saying, if we can kind of write down like, okay, what kind of thinking errors am I having right now during this time? Let's just talk about right now. Am I absolute black and white? Am I jumping to conclusions? Am I emotionally filtering? So number 4 and number 5 on here, if you can't see it, I'll try to, because sometimes I forget that some people are just on their phones and they can't see my PowerPoint. But the mental and emotional filter is right here. So we have frontal lobes, and it says using only one of the two is a thinking error. So if we make decisions only with emotion, it's a thinking error. If we make decisions only logically, it's a thinking error. So we need to use both of them together. That's called wise mind. And that's a practice. That takes some work. In the genders, of course, we're a little different in that way. Men stay in their logical brain a little more. Women stay in their emotional brain a little more. So we want to switch you over to logical and switch you over to emotional. And there's ways to do that. That's a whole other class. But it's just, this is really good awareness of your thoughts, because we want to make sure we're not having thought process errors that add to feeling and behavior, because it always reaches to a behavior. So we want to curb the behavior. So we have to know these first. So jumping to conclusions, magnifying, we shrink the positive, we focus on the negative. Yeah, so just watch these, and that's all, just watch them. And if anyone has, so the self-talk that I talked about, like up here when we're in the frontal lobes, we're still self-talking. So the self-talk question, it's super, super simple. And this actually comes from a book a little bit to, it's a combination, and I didn't put that in the resources. I'll add that. The Crucial Conversations talks about how to self-talk your thinking error story out of the way. So thinking errors are not facts, and usually they're thinking error stories. So we make up stories to help ourselves, and this is still in the thought process. So you have to ask yourself, is this true? How do I know it's true? How does this make me feel? And then what if I didn't hold this belief? Because if we hold the belief, the thinking error story, then it leads to a feeling and a behavior, and then it's repetitive. So this is the little, what can I control? It's like I can't control the actions of others. I can control what I do with social media, with social distancing, with following recommendations of who, of my therapist, of my doctor, of my boss, of my, those kind of things. How we react to others is our reaction, and we have control over that. So, okay. So is everyone good with thoughts? That was just a little, we're doing thoughts, feeling, and behavior. So I'm going to move on through to feelings and emotions, unless anyone wants to raise their hand and say, okay, I didn't get thoughts, but, and you could also send a chat to Heather, and you can ask those questions at the end. So chime in if you need to interrupt me. So emotions and secondary emotions are my forte, I guess. I love to emotionally coach and teach currency emotional coaching. I'm a play therapist. I'm a really emotionally focused therapist. And so this is super important, because we have to know what we're feeling in order to go to the next step, which is the behavior. So this is off of one of my little handout that I have made, and that I'll send as a PDF too. And it's just the first 2 steps of finding an emotion, making sure you know what your secondary emotions are. Now, how I call them secondary emotions: primary emotions, sad, mad, shame, happy, scared. And we mostly, and Brene Brown quotes this all the time, is like, most adults, we know what what we're feeling, which is happy, pissed off, or sad. I mean, that's pretty much what we live in, in her research. And she and I and many other people the average is what we want you to know and have and label every single day. I have people label and find 30 secondary emotions of the whole day, just in one day. We should know 30 secondary emotions. So this is my wheel I'll send out. So here's the primary emotions. These are all the secondary emotions. If you can't see my video, they're just primary in the middle, and secondary, all these words of betrayed and resentment and outraged and annoyed and jealous and hurt and lonely and inadequate and overwhelmed and discouraged. And then on the other side, happy and peaceful, we feel content and relief and safe and worthwhile and trusted and creative, and respected and motivated, or we feel grounded. So those are all secondary emotions. We should be able to find 30 of those a day. That's normal. We want you to be all over the place. And what's going on is just what's going on. And so, and if when you get this handout, the outside says grief, loss, and trauma, and powerless, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. So what's happening is we need to just be aware of what we're feeling, so we can release the fight, flight, or freeze, which is back here, our midbrain, on what I was talking about. Wise mind, frontal lobes is where we reason and make decisions, is here. So this is where we want to keep with reasoning, so we can make great decisions. Now, fight, flight, or freeze keeps us alive also. So we make good decisions in that, but we have to get out of it eventually. And so rating your emotion 1 to 10 is just another way to see the level. So I just do 1 to 10, 10 being a strong emotion. So if you have a strong emotion for the day that kind of hijacks everything else, like frustration or overwhelm, then that's a 9 for the day. If it hijacked everything else, then it's a strong emotion for the day. If you had a panic, if you threw up, if you hit the wall, if you whatever your 10s look like, that's a strong emotion with a behavior of a strong emotion after. So that's kind of how I rated just 1 to 10, 10 being strong. Doesn't matter. You can be content all day, and you could be an 8 or a 9 content. And so that would be your top emotion that was the highest number of the day. So how you experience emotions is, of course, we don't want you to block our stuff and push it away, because those stuffers turn into volcanoes. That's an anger management term. You be a witness to your emotion. No judgment. Be present. 5 senses. So I'm going to talk about being present. I'm going to talk about 5 senses a little bit, because that's how you have to be present. So that's mindfulness. A little bit of that stuff later on. So there's your secondary emotions kind of rundown, and how to get to your secondary emotions. I would challenge to write down as much as you can through this process of like, okay, how am I doing? Where am I at? Because we don't want to stuff those during this time. And with that said, I'm going to do a little disclaimer here. So the thing is about this stuff, the unknowns and the unseens. During this time, there's lots of unknowns and unseens. And if you have children, please just explain this to them. And then you kind of give yourself permission to step back and say, well, we're doing awesome. We're doing the best we can right now, and it doesn't matter. So full permission. I don't add things to people's plate. I want you to take things off your plate. Because in this time, if we're in acute stress, which most of us are, so it's a time of an unseen unknown, and so it's a very traumatic time. So if, like on the emotional wheel that I showed, if we're in grief and loss, if we're in grief, loss, and trauma, okay, got that down. I mean, come on, okay, let's have some fun. I could list all the things I've lost. Yeah, I really like going to restaurants. I really like social. I really like going to the movies. I have a reward system on those kind of things, right? That was my reward system. So I've had to get creative. Like everybody and all my clients, we've We've had to get creative about a reward system of changing from loss to gain. So how all the losses that I've had, how do we gain it to, or add it, gain from a loss. So here's my losses, and I have, and everyone has a list of losses, and then what's my gain from that? And that's where our value system switches, and our time, energy, and money goes to different things. Have we not ate at home way more in the last couple of weeks? I did a class last week on that, on parenting, of like what the importance is of eating at home and the statistics on that with the family. So we've eaten at home some more. We've spent some more time being like trapped with each other, and that might add to some agoraphobia, but if anyone has some trapped feelings, then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm trapped with somebody, or I'm trapped in this situation, and that's a little agoraphobia starting. Like, so that's another, traumatic, just that's happening. So that's a feeling. If I feel trapped, then we have to add something to that to get us untrapped, right? So if we can't go to the gym because I feel trapped at home because the gyms are closed, then we have to come up with this other short-term gain. So this is the differences between these unknowns and unseens. The unknowns and unseens: number one, earthquake; number two, virus. Very unseen. So when we have an unseen trauma, it's like times, I would say 1,000 on the brain, because we can't make sense of it, and we're trying to wrap our head around our brain going, I can't make sense of this. The news says this, and I didn't see the earthquake. I didn't know, So our brain goes into some reactions, okay? So here's the rundown of those main, from a traumatic event: acute stress, 1 month, short term. So this little stress, the 3 types over here in this little picture, it basically follows this. So, and then here's an adjustment. So we'll go back to acute stress. So we have symptoms for 1 month, okay? So, we can say, okay, we're kind of having some acute stress. It's a 1 month thing. We don't know how long these symptoms are going to continue. And so then if they do continue after that 1 month, guess what we got? An adjustment. So, and that can last for about 6 months. I talk to parents about this all the time, about after a kid has moved or even moved schools, it's a huge adjustment on the brain because all your environments have been completely disrupted. So I want you to write down right now how many adjustments in your environment, there's actually 9 main environments, have been disrupted. I mean, your daily routine. What's been an adjustment? I mean, I bet we could all write down at least 15, like right now. Like, well, my kids are at home, or I've had to work from home, or I've lost my job, or I don't see my family, or I don't have these gatherings that were traditions that kept my social life and my social balance intact. So just think about, write down like all the adjustments that we're having. And so it's nothing to do about it right now. It's just awareness. And then after that 6 months, we go into, we could do some post-traumatic, right? So in between the adjustment and post-traumatic, if you have symptoms that are continuing, that is when we need treatment. So the brain doesn't go into neural pathways of routine and action of this is what's happening. We want treatment in between there, so it doesn't turn into post as much, right? So that's long-term, that's chronic stress. So that's just a little bit of education on that, and how to help your mental health, because we have to know what level we're at. If you're at acute stress, if you're in adjustment, if you're post, 3 to 6 months plus, and that's long-term acute stress, or chronic stress, I mean. So, and then here's the emotions behind these, and this is the symptoms that we're going to have of emotion is loss, grief, and power, right? So talked about that already. And those are the unseen and unseen versus seen is I kind of already talked about. So well, the scene, a traumatic scene would be, you can see someone ill. I always explain this as if someone is suffering from cancer, and you can see their illness, you can see them declining or going through chemo, and there's physiological changes. You can see that trauma. You can see that, and there's loss, grief, and powerless, but you can see it, and so your brain makes sense of it, and you know what it is. But this kind of stuff is different when it's unseen. Okay, so everybody with me, let's see. We're about halfway, so cool. So we're to the behavior. So we've done the thought, and we've done the feeling, and now we're to the behavior. They all are in a circle, and they all feed on each other, okay? So this is just some behavior part. So, because remember, our mental health is how we feel, what we think, what we feel, and what we act on. So here's our acting. Here's our burnout. We kind of have to know if we're in burnout, because we don't do so well with our coping skills if we are in burnout. So the 5 stages of burnout, the honeymoon. Okay. The honeymoon stage I've dealt with a lot with my foster kids. Or they were in a kind of an acute stress, all the time. But the first month, they're definitely in a honeymoon stage of acute stress. So they're not into the burnout stage yet. And then the onset of stress comes, and then the chronic stress comes, and then burnout, and then habitual burnout. So on the other side of the screen here is the basic reactions of our balance, because that's why I went over your balance, your mental, your social, your emotional, and your physical. So these are all correlated in those 4 balances. So here's what you can correlate. So if you're physically burned out right now because you haven't worked out and you're not sleeping, and oh my gosh, there's some serious sleep coping skills that I might have time to go over in the end, because sleep is my #1 issue with a lot of my clients, and especially now. And that adds to burnout, because after 2 days of not having REM sleep, we have these cognitive reactions, short-term memory problems, judgment impaired, racing thoughts. We focus on the negative. We actually have dementia symptoms after 2 days of not having REM sleep. And if anyone wants to look up REM sleep, write that little note down. We have to have REM sleep to repair the brain. So it affects our cognitive for sure. Then it goes into emotional. We're more impatient, we're depressed, we're anxious, we're hopeless, we're more confused. And then behavioral, we get increased habits, right? Sleep disturbances, impaired listening skills, withdrawal, aggression. So that's awesome for our relationships, right? So if we're in burnout, our relationship skills don't really work so good. And when I'm working with a couple, it's like, okay, if someone's completely in burnout or habitual burnout, we have really hard time with listening skills, and we withdraw more, and it's not going to help your relationship. So we've got to get out of burnout or manage that burnout to a point where we can get back to just like onset of stress, which happens all the time. We're in stress all the time, not chronic stress. And then the physiological, heart rate, increased in fatigue, illness and stomach problems. We have headaches and increased pain. And so that kind of sounds like, that nausea and dizziness and aches. That sounds like a headache. No, it doesn't. It sounds like a heart attack. It's like, so look at the symptoms here: burnout reaction and a panic attack or heart attack. They have the same symptoms, but so make sure that, we go to the doctor and make sure the physiological part is okay before the mental part of the burnout comes in. But it really restricts being in chronic stress, mood, memory, motivation management of just our life. So this is an issue And if you were already a little burned out before we hit some pandemic crisis and stuff, then this is going to add to it. So hopefully there'll be some skills in here that you can start practicing. Like I said, I'm not going to add to your plate, but take things off your plate. Take some things off your plate that helps your burnout. We've got to sleep, and physical sleep and diet is really important to know. Any questions so far? Should we take anybody want to chime in on what your normal level of functioning is? What we're used to? That question up at the top of this PowerPoint is, we're used to this. I think we're pretty chronically stressed out anyways, but has anyone moved into burnout since the last couple of weeks, or anybody want to chime in? Do we have any chats going? You can chat in.
That's going. Me personally, though, I've been feeling burnout from trying to coordinate all these webinars. But I know they're awesome and they're needed, and it feels good helping people, but sometimes it's just a lot. So I feel that.
So some people in their jobs have added stress because we've added this rush of like, oh, we need to do this and this and this, right? So it depends on what industry you're in, right? And some other ones have completely dropped out and people have lost their jobs. So Heather's talking about, yeah, so what we did was we bumped up these. We usually do a couple of these a month, and I do a parenting one every month. But what we have done is we've bumped up, I think we've done like 5 extra ones the last week and a half of just because there's a need. And so I would just, this is awesome. I mean, I think it's a complete miracle that we can add these for free, and we can do these webinars, and everyone's staying at home, and we can add this, but it is stressful. To do a PowerPoint in a couple days and research. I do a lot of research before I teach a class. And this is new stuff, but not really new stuff. This is just thinking errors are not new, and burnout stages are not new, and but it just adding to the pandemic or the coronavirus or the financial stress, or kids being out of school. That's all new. There's never happened before. This has never, ever, ever happened before. So give yourself permission to just step back, take things off your plate and go, you know what? I don't know how to do this. School is not the most important thing right now. I full permission to not stress over school. That's one of the tips that I found in my research was like, of course I'll talk about that parenting next week, but like, it's just it's not the most important thing. It's really not. It's important to stay in the acute stress and figure out our emotions and record that and keep it from being stuffed, and so we can get through it without being in burnout reaction and chronic stress or habitual stress or habitual burnout at the end of this. So that's the goal of trying to catch this now and doing a class like this. So we need to catch this now and go into the cognitive, emotional, behavioral, and psychological reactions and going, wow, how many of those are you having? What's your normal of functioning before this and after this? Of like, wow, I've got this one. Oh, I have short-term memory. I have judgment impaired. I'm having racing thoughts. Attention. Who's really present right now? We're like actually zoned out a little bit. So that's the brain. Yeah.
Sorry, Carol. We have a few comments coming in now.
Okay.
So quite a few. So buckle up.
Let's have a couple. Let's have a couple of them.
Yeah,
couple of them.
I have noticed that my spouse is more irritable and more easily frustrated. Any advice on how to assist him during this time? I should add he is in law enforcement.
Okay, so this makes sense, right? Because look at the reaction. We're more so emotionally, irritability, frustration, impatience, hopelessness, confusion. That's under emotional. So if we're having those things going on, that's just note it and say, okay, how can I help? Well, number one, is patience and recognizing it and taking time out. And we'll get into the mindfulness and coping skills at the end of this. But it's like, wow, okay, we're all recognizing this. People are a little bit more irritable, like little Facebook fights and like, yeah, and of course, you know what? I mean, I'm a certified domestic violence counselor. Domestic violence has tripled in a week. And Utah's rates are high as it is nationwide. They're higher. They've always been higher. So we've got to say, okay, we're really frustrated and irritable right now. We need to have a break. So number one is just patience and taking a break and saying, nope, I'm not going to fight right now. I'm not going to do this right now. It's not worth it. And having those coping skills that I talk about at the end. But recognizing it and being able to hopefully talk about it. Because his fight or flight or freeze is just kicking in. And that's just what he's meant to do. And that's what we're meant to do as humans. It kicks in and it says, you're going to survive. You're not going to die. So makes sense.
Okay, and then just a comment. Someone said, I had burnout more in the beginning. I'm feeling more motivated since setting up a new work from home space.
Mm-hmm.
Good. And then
Perfect idea.
Right. And you just did your office, your home office. You were telling
I did. I just repainted new blinds. I got this whole setup. So I have a door. I had it in my living room. I had a desk in my living room. I carried everything upstairs. It makes me super happy. So
Yep. Okay. And then the next one said, any tips for grinding teeth due to stress? I don't think I did that before, but I've noticed it a lot lately and it's causing headaches.
Okay. So you got to do some mindfulness in that, right? Magnesium is one of the best things for tension and sleep. So I didn't put that in this PowerPoint. I did last time. Magnesium, magnesium, magnesium at night. Vitamin D3. This to increase. I talked about how to increase your immune system. So vitamin D3 and magnesium together is the top two, and there's like not four, but top two. Magnesium, tension, headaches, take it at night, and the citrate is the best kind for mental health and sleep and stomach and everything, and it keeps your heart in rhythm. It's an anti-inflammatory, natural muscle relaxer, natural sleep aid. But yeah, so that's what happens is everything's heightened, right? So our fight, flight, or freeze, our brain is in a cognitive state of fight, flight, or freeze. And that adds stress. So here's the onset of stress. And then we don't want to get to chronic stress. We want to combat that. So is that good?
Okay. And then just a comment. Somebody said, I'm definitely on the onset of stress. We have been struggling to get groceries out on the stores right now in my state. And it worries me with my kids at home. And then we've got someone that said, which I like this too. They said, I felt less burnout since I saw a quote that said, it's okay not to be as productive during a global pandemic.
Yeah. Take things off your plate. Don't add to them. Yes. And so this is all you're talking about is power. So how do we take back power? Because if we're in loss, grief, and trauma, that's fine. We're going to be in that. But when we're in powerless, that means we're in a crisis. So how do we take us back to just the loss, grief, and trauma? I have loss and grief. I'm not going to be able to go into a restaurant. I'm not going to be able to go back to my life, all of us, for a while. So how do we just have power over that part? We have to find power over it. So what do? We set up our office. We walk outside. We do some of these things. We find help. We go into therapy. We talk about it. So yes, all those things. And then the burnout you won't get to the burnout because you're doing something about your power that you need to, find. It's just power over it.
Yep. And then a couple more comments. A lot of people are talking about just trying to balance school and work and how they like that you've been talking about taking stuff off your plate because it just feels so overwhelming.
Right. And don't put pressure. So powerless and pressure, I have all these favorite P words. So just don't put pressure. Add pressure to your kids, to yourself, because that adds to the powerless. Pressure doesn't work. And then the last one that ends up with when you're doing lots of pressure and powerless, it's perfectionism. So now I have to be perfect. No, that's not going to happen. The schoolwork doesn't have to be perfect. The house doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing has to be perfect. So, because that's a black and white. That's number one thinking here is never and always. I never do this. You never always do that. You never keep your room clean. You always. That's a thinking error. So, yeah.
Okay, and then people are just kind of, saying what they're stressed about. But somebody did ask, can you please include more detail about the magnesium?
Yes. Okay. So magnesium. This is my so real quick, and it's not on this PowerPoint, but so if you want to write it down, so these are your mental health supplements that we are lacking. You cannot get vitamin D3 from the sun. You can look up Dr. Berg on YouTube, and he talks all about any of this. So we need to take vitamin D3, actually a pretty large amount of that. That's why I'm going to say that. And you have to take that because you don't absorb it from the sun, and that helps your vitamin D3. D as in dog. D3 is a hormone that's a vitamin, the only one that is, that runs our mood in our brain, and it helps your immune system also, since we're concerned about our immune system right now. So this is how to calm. This next page I'm on is how to calm the automatic nervous system. And this is some supplements that actually help that. Okay, so zinc is a really good one. Your B vitamins during the day. These are all day. Vitamin D3, zinc, B vitamins, your B complex, and then these are the top 4 that I have people get on. Now, the last one is magnesium. It's taken at night. It is a natural muscle relaxer, calming the nervous system, calming your inflammation, because here's stress. The stress that sends us into this is your stress hormones. Very basic stuff here I'm talking, like just your stress hormones. So we have to combat our nervous system with these, and we have to calm our nervous system. And so these are some of the things that do that with our mental health. And so magnesium is one of the best things to treat mental health. So it's 400 to 800 mgs. I have a list for kids. It starts at like 250, all the way from a 3-year-old all the way up to 18. So just look at you figure out your dosages. I'm not a doctor, but I am a clinician. I am a clinical therapist that has research on this. And so the vitamin D3 and the magnesium together is very essential, because the magnesium helps the vitamin D3 absorb into your system and all your other vitamins and your way you eat and everything. So magnesium helps it absorb into your muscles, your bones, everything. And so we don't get it from water. We haven't drank out of streams in 100 years. We don't get magnesium. We don't get enough of it. We're probably depleted in as much as vitamin D3, especially in Utah. When we come out of an inversion, I don't call it seasonal depression. I call it vitamin D3 deficiency. People are like, I have seasonal depression. I'm like, yeah, so we need vitamin D3. And so both of those are really good for your immune system. So take it at night. So these are the 3 ways. Pill, spray. There's a magnesium spray on Amazon that I buy all the time. And Calm, it's CALM. That's in a drink form, so you can give it to your kids that way. That's the citrate kind. And one more, there's 4. So your Epsom salt in a bath, that is straight magnesium. That's why it feels so good, and it's good for your muscles, and it helps your achy muscles and everything. That's magnesium. So take it in a pill form also. So you can do all those kind of things to calm your nervous system with magnesium. And that's that good.
Yep. And then a couple more questions. Do you give the same advice for somebody that's in habitual burnout? Like can't get it?
So habitual is therapy on some serious weekly balance. And then we go through those steps of stages of change to get to self-discipline first, delaying gratification. Then we have to have a reward system, and then we go into motivation. So changing a habit of very long-term, 3 to 6 months of changing those behavioral habits, I call it routine. It's just changing your routine. That's the way you get out of that. You have to, if you've been in habitual, it might not just be habitual. It turns into clinical depression. It turns into other clinical stuff. And so if you're in habitual and you're in there for a while, it could just be, clinical depression too. So that needs to be treated. So.
Okay, and then one more question before we move on. Someone said, I realized in-person social interactions and physical contact like hugs helps me with stress and it's overall positive for my mental health. Obviously, right now with social distancing, it is not allowed. What is some advice you could give about that?
So with my parenting, I did a couple ideas on that too. So of course we're like, oh my gosh, okay, so I love Marco Polo, all this stuff that's like creative. We got to get creative. We got to get fun. We got to have some humor. So connecting as much as possible, right? Same with me. It's like, wow, it feels so good to like, and I had my grandkids over like Monday, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I wasn't too worried about it, but I was like, I haven't seen them for a while, and I was like, okay, you sit over there, but I just want to hug them, and it's like, okay, how do we do this? This is so new. This is so strange for our brain. So we've got to get creative to combat that, whatever that looks like, and send dopamine. So when you hug and touch, it sends dopamine and serotonin to the brain. Okay. So of course your significant other and other people, and I have lots of single friends, we're really struggling, in that sense. And so it's like, here's your better half, okay, and your kids, it's like, we're doing our best, and then here's distancing from everyone else. So do the best you can with getting creative. But yeah, so basically you have to find other ways to send dopamine to your brain, which is jumping jacks and exercising and music and calming, mindfulness and all this stuff, and walking, and that all sends lots of dopamine to the brain, but also vitamin D3 does too. So our focus. So this is really big since we're talking about what's right now. Okay, so this is what I've kind of turned to the last couple of weeks with a lot of people and a lot of my substance abuse groups that I teach and therapy. The focus has to be on what's right in front of you. You have to turn everything to what's right in front of you. So right now, what are you doing? So when you're eating, it's right now. It's what's in front of you right now. Look around. What am I focusing on right now? We have to get back to that simple focus. And this is a little bit of mindfulness. So letting go of thoughts of past and future without judgment, that's mindfulness. Pause throughout the day to present mindfulness to yourself. Walking, eating, imagery, body scan. And I put a couple links down here on this PowerPoint. If you can't see it, hopefully you'll get it later. But it's freemindfulness.org, livingwell.org. So there's two, and they're both free. And you can download anything on there and use this. So I've got to demonstrate, I want to demonstrate these 3 ways to calm the nervous system, the automatic nervous system that is an automatic response system that goes into play into stress and fight, flight, or freeze. And so these are 3 ways to calm it. Now, this is if you're still self-talking. If you're at an 8 to a 10, good luck. You're not going to do this stuff, okay? And so if you have a kiddo that's having extreme panic or anxiety, or you are, this is afterwards, this is before, this is just during the day when you are self-talking up here, because fight or flight's up here. So we want to calm it after and before on a regular basis. So if you're in habitual, whoever was in habitual chronic, stress or burnout, your brain hasn't been here for a really long time, and it's exhausting. It is exhausting on your system. And your stress hormones are so strong in your brain, and your neural pathways just say, nope, that's what you do, that's what you do, that's what you do. You got to change. And we have science to show that we've got to change our we can change our neural pathways. This is how you do it, with continuous routine and maintenance of it. So 4 square breathing. This is how it goes. It's just 4 squares. And I have kids and everybody count on and using your, so if you can't see me, I'm pointing with my thumb to my fingers up 4. So it's basically 4 seconds, but you're breathing up 4 and you're holding it for 4 and then letting it out for 4 and waiting 4 and then doing it 4 times. So this is something that kids can do under their desk. You can do it under your desk. You can do it anywhere, anytime when you're sitting at a light, and you're just stressed out, or you feel your body coming on with this natural nervous system that hits us, and you're just something triggered that, maybe, we don't know, so a thought, and that's what happens sometimes in a feeling. But then here's your behavior. You have power over your behavior. You can quickly breathe. You can do that anywhere, any place, anytime, anywhere. So that's one that's just anywhere, any place. No one will know you're doing it. Before bed, statistically, if I had myself wired up and I did that for 4 times, your heart rate drops 3 times lower than it was before. So the next one is trace or color. So I have, and they're in my office, in my other office, and I do have a book here that's mine so it's like basically you're going to trace, and you're going to any coloring book, any adult coloring book, but I have like these designs. So you can make up your own, you can just trace anything. I mean, if I went and traced like, words or images, so they're just lines. So you put it in front of you. I get a chopstick, your chopstick from the Chinese store, from the restaurant. I just steal a couple Chinese chopsticks, and I don't use it because and I have these chopsticks in my office for kids or anyone to do a calming a calming intervention. And so you use a chopstick because it's long and it's wooden, and you can use your 5 senses that way, and you're just tracing with the chopstick. So you can use anything, pencil's fine, but you're just tracing or coloring. It is a very calming frontal lobe, it brings you to your frontal lobes. So focus point. I switched the name to this just because it's easy. Okay, so focus point. So this is your pen. Get a sharp object that you can focus on. Okay, so really quick, I'm going to show you how to do this. So basically, you want it about 6 inches away from your face. So you're going to focus on the tip for 3 seconds. So this is a brain thing, okay? Same thing with the tracing. I mean, the breathing is a brain thing too, but it's a little different. This is a real deep brain thing because you're using your eyes. Our eyes are very important. REM sleep, EMDR. They both have an eye connected, So those 2 things. So REM sleep, of course, we need it because our eyes move back and forth. That's what we get into the REM sleep. It repairs the brain. This is one way that you can quickly go into calming your nervous system. So here's the point, 3 seconds. Okay, I'm looking at the point if you can see my eyes. And then for 3 seconds, you're focusing on the point. Then 3 seconds, you're going beyond it and going to the wall. So you're looking at the wall or whatever's in front of you, right? So then 3 seconds there, back to 3 seconds, then 3 seconds to the wall, and 3 seconds here, and keep doing that. Up to even 5 minutes. You need, for a good 5 minutes, you're going to bring your nervous system down very quickly. And even just doing that and me focusing on this, of course, my breath goes lower, my heart rate goes lower. You feel yourself calming down. So that's a quick little intervention that you can do pretty much anywhere else. So we want to get to the coping, okay? So here's a list. If you can't see the screen, I'll go over it a little bit. Here's some family. I kind of put the family and then just the self. These are little checklists, okay? So you can checklist this off. I should do a PDF of just these little checklists you can go through and checklist it off. But so family, good distraction. 10 minutes to 2 hours is a good distraction. Avoidance is 2 hours plus. So think about what you're doing for avoidances in the brain. It turns into avoidance. If you watch TV, if you game, gaming, we had a record on March 15th of 50 million people gaming at the same time, and most of them were out in Italy. I saw that statistic. It was fun. So anything 2 hours plus, we're now into an avoidance stage in our brain. Okay, not good. Stop, do something else, come back to it, work, housework, whatever it is. Just homework, especially, like, you got to take a break. So 10 minutes to 2 hours is good distraction. So go watch a movie together for 2 hours. It's a perfect distraction. You zone out for a minute, but don't go into avoidances. Active, creative play. We've got to get active with our creativity. That's the biggest way, one of the biggest ways besides exercise to combat burnout and depression. Okay. Screen time, limit it. Increase humor. I've been super funny. I think I haven't been quite as funny like in my groups and like as much as I have, but man, you just got to laugh at it. You got to laugh at things. You got to make fun of the toilet paper situation. I think it's science. It's just science to me, because bedroom, bathroom, and kitchen are the most essential rooms in our brain and the most safest rooms. So we need to take back the power in those rooms. So when we don't have power, we do things. Yeah. So we've got kitchen and bathroom going. So timer as your boss. So I wanted to kind of explain that. So make the time your boss. Make it 10 minutes. I'm gonna meditate. I'm going to do mindfulness. I'm going to stretch. I'm going to walk. Make the time your boss and schedule it. Here's some reach out. Here's Utah Safe app. It's an app that is for, I have it right here. It looks like this. So it is for depression, anxiety, suicide prevention, grief, loss, bullying, drug and alcohol problems, self-harm, relationship difficulties, any life challenge. Download the app. Download the app. It is confidential. It's free, of course. You can chat, text privately. If you're worried about someone, Utah Safe app. Okay. I can't do enough of that stuff. Suicide hotline, domestic violence crisis line. So here's your self balance. So your mindfulness, reducing your caffeine, all those kind of things will help. A reward system, taking mini vacations. So mini vacations, those are imagery. You can pretend that you're going on vacation. I've been doing a lot of it. So you have to, because I have to go to my vacation spot that I can't go to right now. So do it in your head. Your brain doesn't know the difference. Okay, so that's it. How's everybody doing? Everybody stay with me. So how are we doing, Heather?
Good. We have one question and then we'll end it for today. So someone said, what are some tips for dealing with stress of caring for children / schooling while working?
Okay, so it's called juggling. I was kind of joking about, I'm kind of funny, like I was telling you. I was going to start this, this PowerPoint with me juggling something, and I was like, what can I juggle? I have my hula hoop here that's for kids, like to keep your safe place, to make a safe place. If you don't want anybody to, touch you, just take your hula hoop everywhere, and they can't go inside your hula hoop. It's fun to juggle, right? So it's called do the best you can, and it's difficult. So how are we doing that overnight with juggling school and everything? It's balance, and it's timer is the boss. The best thing for kids is here's your boss, the timer. Buy a timer, set the timer. You have timer. We all have timers on our watch, on our clock, on our phones, on our stoves. So just, and the other one is I can send you the PowerPoint from last week. It talks all about this for parenting. And the other thing is make a sign, put it on your door that says mommy's on a call or daddy's on, working, and then teach your kids what an emergency is. That's all. This is an emergency. This is A, B, and C is when you interrupt me. C. And when we get to C, then you can interrupt me. So